we're back at it, and I have done an update on OBS, so hopefully that might have fixed the frame drop issues that we've been running into. I guess we'll see. If that did fix it, we're going to go back to multi-streaming maybe to Twitch at some point. But today, still, until I can do a stream where it's not like 10% of frames are getting dropped, we're sticking with just one streaming platform for the time being, I would think. Let me open up the chat window a little bit and move things around a tiny bit for me. Can I put that over there? Yes, I can. Fantastic. So, what we're going to be doing here today, it's my connection is yellow. It's not dropping frames, but my connection was yellow there for a moment. That's not good. What we're going to be doing here is, because the Discord voted, is we're going to be making more of these spells. At the moment we have 12 of them. We also have some summons. I don't know if I'm going to go through with the idea of having these summons in the game, because they're not that fun to play with, frankly, and they require a lot of work to make an AI that works in both a allied and an enemy sense at the same time. I at one point did do that when they worked on behavior trees. Right now they don't work on behavior trees at all anymore. They work on state trees, so I would need to rework all of that, and I'm honestly just not quite sure that that's something that I want to do. So I have those assets still there. We're just gonna kind of pretend like we're not paying attention to those. So we've got 12 spells. And my goal for the game is a total of eventually having 50. Which is a lot. But that will include a couple of fairly easy ones. So I think we probably can get started with the easy ones. So let's actually make a favorite for this folder, because we're going to be jumping back and forth between folders quite a lot here. So add to favorites. Because then we also, in blueprints, characters, player, gameplay ability system, gameplay ability, spells, we have only 11 of them. That's worrying. Let's call this spells abilities, just so that I can easily distinguish within the favorites in a moment. So yeah, that's a little worrying. Where are we missing one? Because we surely are missing one. I'm guessing it probably is healing. Gameplay ability, I don't think healing is in here, which technically is a spell, so I probably should put it in there. We'll do that in a moment. And then add this to the favorites as well. So yeah, where is my healing stuff? That's a fantastic question. I guess the best way to get to that is to just open up this data asset, and then gameplay ability heal is in there. So I'm just going to go over there, and then we have 12 in there as well. So we have those folders side by side so that we can work on them and keep track of everything. I think the first thing that I'm going to want to do is proper grammar, with lacking the possibility of doing any such thing, is I think I want to make a gameplay ability here that's just going to be an alternative to healing, which I've been talking about for months. It's actually going to be super easy to implement, so let's copy this over real quick. Gameplay ability for heal, and we'll make one for regen, which is simply going to be a healing gameplay effect that works over a period of 60 seconds instead of instantly. The trade-off of which obviously going to be if you have to wait a certain amount of time or it gets applied to you over time, the total amount of HP that you're going to get out of it for the amount of MP that you put into it should be higher, because suddenly we also have this other variable that's getting put into this equation, which is time, and that time surely needs to have some sort of value representation, whether that being taken some MP over the cost or delivering more HP in total. So that's the idea behind that, and that's going to be super quick and easy to set up because this is literally just gameplay ability. We check if we can commit the ability. We also check something else here. We check if we're already at max health. That makes sense. Then we spawn a system attached. We're not going to do that for this. Well, we probably need to. Well, yeah, let's do that still. Then we spawn a sound, and then we end the ability. Do we not apply? Oh, we apply a gameplay effect. There we go. So yeah, let's just copy that over as well. Because it's effectively just going to be the same thing. Player regen. More or less going to be the same thing, but instead of it being instant, we'll do it over a period of time with an interval, right? So we have this duration policy going from instant to has duration. Duration magnitude is how long it lasts. So let's say that it lasts about 60 seconds. And then we have the period in which it's going to apply. So if we do every 5 seconds, that will be 12 executions in total. We can actually set this up, I believe. Yeah, apply on application. So that would be 13 times technically, because it'll apply instantly and then every 5 seconds after that. Question is, at the 60th second, if it also applies, I think it probably will. So that will be 13 applications of this in total, which is fine. We increase the base health attributes by 1. Wait, what? That doesn't make a lot of sense. We used the generic curve table that I made with the linear curve, and it says just using 1. I was thinking something like 10, right? Because I would make it heal. How much does normal healing actually heal? That's maybe the more important question. Because it seemingly is going to only heal 1 as well. That doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem right at all. Let's. Do I have no? This for Windows. Let me open that up real quick. Let me test out if the healing spell is somehow only going to heal me for 1 HP, because that's clearly not the way that should work. Right? We have, let's see, this is heal. Put that on. I need to fix the navigation for this shit as well, because it's really bad. There we go. When I'm inside of this area, it should just navigate like actually down and left and right. I'm going to press the corresponding buttons, but it doesn't quite do that. Something for a later day to look at. That's not a good sign. Why is it freezing up on me? I prefer the engine not to crash right now. I'm going to be real with you, because... What the hell? Oh, there we go. Because I haven't saved a lot of stuff. I don't know why it froze up there. That's mildly worrying, not gonna lie. There's nothing that thing can do that should be that expensive to begin with, I don't think. I can just put it on this slot, that's fine. Oh, accidentally spawned in 2 batches of them, that's fine. Wait, they're not attacking? Why are they not attacking? What the hell, man? I just need you to damage me. Can you just please damage me? Why aren't you damaging me? maybe it's just something random that's gonna get fixed when I do this again. Yeah, they're just not. They just don't. Like altogether, they just don't want to. Why? This worked literally like yesterday when I was playing the game. Let's take a look. They're en route, active, aggressive. Active to do ability to context. What the hell? What's going on here? Parameters abilities. Oh, so we have a parameter related thing with that oh, there we go. Yeah, so that's why it doesn't work. That makes sense. Then why did it work yesterday though? I don't know. Artisan the Machine joins the chat. Hello, how are you doing today? Yeah, so this is the reason. So it's got to be like zombie attack L, zombie attack R, and then I guess dive attack is its own thing, so we can just keep that as is. I like gameplay ability a lot. There's the small downside if you're not used to it of having to work in like C++, obviously. I don't mind that. So it's like not really a pain point for me. It's a little weird the way that you... There we go. I was actually trying to get hurt there. Okay, please hit me again. Thank you very much. Yeah, so now that does heal me for more. So what the hell's going on? That's weird. So the what was I talking about? Oh yeah, that. There is kind of like an issue with when you activate an ability, it like creates the ability, it runs the ability, but then getting access to whatever is happening inside of the ability after the fact. So if I, for instance, like go in into like this task over here where I activate an ability somewhere along the lines, maybe we have the ability here, which is, well, actually that's not where I want to be at all. Where I want to be is I do want to be in here. Do ability. There we go. So we just activate ability and or give it an activated once, right? You get this ability handle out of it, but that doesn't really like do you any good. If I want to like sample information out of that ability, like whatever values I might be setting within the ability, right? That's a bit of a pain. And likewise, I've tried making this work in a number of different ways, and this is the way that I ended up going with. But if you want to like stall something until that ability is then finished, which like in things like this behavior tree context, you definitely want to like stay on this task until the ability is finished. If this would just output the ability object instead of some like weird handle to it, that you can barely use to like actually get the object. I want to just get the object because the object I know for a fact has a delegate on it that calls out when the ability finishes. I just want to be able to bind to that delegate, right? Not rocket science, nothing like revolutionary. That's just what I want to do. We've had a massive pain with that in the past, trying to get that to work. So the way that I do it now is I just wait for a gameplay tag that the ability gives to the actor to be removed. And that is how I trigger the end of this task, right? So that's less than ideal. Because even if you like get ability, like this presumably gets you the ability object. That might work. I've had issues with it in the past. I don't remember the details. I just remember it not working. But you can get the reference to the like specific object because that's what this handle is, right? This handle is just a unique identifier that you can use to like get the object. I personally don't really see why you wouldn't just like send through the object. I guess this is more like replication friendly because you can send through those handles and the server and clients can be in agreement on which handles belong to which abilities. Whereas pointers obviously are places in memory, so maybe that doesn't work quite as well over the network. So that's probably actually the reason that this works this way now I think about it. But I've had some issues with that, yeah. Think about implementing an outside my usual ability actor component system. If you do not wish to use the C++ side, you can always use the Ninja gas plugin. Yeah, so there is that plugin that just exposes pretty much all the C++ stuff to Blueprint, as I understand. I've never really looked into it, but I think with that it's pretty much like Blueprint, Blueprint accessible. I don't exactly know how it would deal with it. A couple of things like making attribute sets and but that's probably just like an object in that case, right? Because attribute sets also have their like pre and post attribute change, like delegates and that kind of stuff. I've got C++ skills, so that's not that much of an issue. Yeah, so if that's like not much of an issue, that's great. Again, this whole like getting the object and like actually doing stuff with that is a little weird. It seems like it's not really designed to be used that way, is all I'll say. But I'm sure you can get it to work if you put like more than an hour into it, like I did. For me, I came up with this workaround where I just watch for the tag that corresponds with this ability to be removed, and that's the other side, is because everything is so like tag based that can be really useful as a designer because you just slap a tag on something and like the system takes care of everything for you, right? It's really infuriating while debugging sometimes because things are so like decoupled, because it's just like you send in something with a tag, the system takes care of it and does all of its things and just does whatever it needs to do with an object with that tag, right? It can make it kind of hard to like follow a chain of execution of what happens when you run into a bug, because you don't actually have like a hard link, because you're not like directly calling one function on one object to another object. There's like a layer of obfuscation there, which can be kind of annoying to deal with. Attributes are a JSON file, and that puts into a data table. Yeah, so you probably need to like do the clamping elsewhere then still, because that's still something that's quite like nice to be able to do, because you have your attribute sets, I don't know, somewhere fucking in here. Where even, there we go. Because attribute sets are just like specifically a file that you make here, right? So that's a specific type of object. You do also have like the ability to like put these functions on it. Or like even make your entire like own function. I just wanted to get from this attribute set the percentage of HP, so you just add that in because it's like just a normal class like anything else. But yeah. Is it better to set a trigger tag on an ability than sending that tag to an actor with the ability granted, than in the ability using the event trigger instead of the base ability start? No, I don't think so. It gives me a payload that I can pass actors and info through to the and assign back to the actual to the ability. I guess if you need to send through certain information to your ability, you can do that. Yeah. But that's, you send that through to like your ability component, and then like any ability watching out for that specific tag gets it. That's how that works, right? Yeah. So if you like need to provide in any external information to your ability, that's probably the way to do it. Yeah. But that doesn't like really. You still hook that up to activate ability in the end, because you activate ability from like the outside, right? You have your ability system component, and then you do like give ability and activate once, or just activate owned ability or whatever. That runs the activate ability, and then anything like you want to do with like getting like your payloads into it to make sure that I have everything, you can't just like wait for that event to happen. But you would do that after the ability has been activated. Because the wait for event is just a latent node. It's not like an event in and of itself, in the blueprint sense. So how the hell did we get around to like, how does this heal more than 1 HP? Because that doesn't make sense. We have the modifier magnitude, scale, like all of this. Do we have like a multiplier somewhere in here? I don't think so. Let's make sure that we're using the right one. Gameplay ability, gameplay effect heal player. That's the one, right? Yeah. I don't know what's how that makes sense. Is it just always setting me to full HP somehow? Because in that case, it might just be doing something weird with the clamping, I imagine. Just get a whole lot of damage. It's gonna take a minute, but we'll get there. I literally just dodged out of the way of 2 attacks. Fantastic. Give me some more. I want to get hit around a lot. Okay, so no, it actually does heal me for about like 50% HP, so that is about 50 HP, to be fair. So how does that make sense at all? Oh, level. It's the level that we give in. Because, okay, I remember now. It's been like 3 months since I worked on any of this, okay? What's happening, I remember, is the level that we give in here is what this value on this slider gets set at, right? So we give it in at level 50, so that it heals on a linear scale 50 HP. So what we do is we go into the whole regen thing, gameplay play regen, and we just set this to be something. First and foremost, this needs to be regen. And then this should stick at 1. And then in the regen ability, we're going to say like 10, and I'm going to do that about 13 times. So that's actually maybe a little bit, well, no, 10 is probably good, because that's a lot more HP than just normally healing. Interesting, this seems like a process to set up, but once done, it's expandable. So, there is a bit of setting up involved. It's not that bad. You need to set up your classes in C++ to have your ability system components and the ability system interface, so that you can easily like do things like this, get ability system components. That is an interface that you do need to implement in C++. I'm like 90% sure. Not blueprint exposed to add, but the nodes, the functions themselves are blueprint exposed. But then once you have everything set up in C++, which is just like setting up an attribute set for your characters, which like, what attribute do your characters have? Like stamina, like mana, like HP, giving them an ability system component. From there, it's all pretty much down to like scripting out your abilities, which is like very powerfully done in Blueprint with like all these gameplay tasks and like all the latent stuff. Which is really where it starts to shine. Because otherwise you would need to either make your own ability system or code all of this directly into each character that can do each ability. And if characters share abilities, and it's annoying, it makes for like a very, very big file with a lot of functions in it, which is also annoying to navigate. It takes a bit to set up the system, but if you're doing more abilities, gas seems definitely... Yeah, so that's kind of the thing. If you have like 3 attacks in your game, probably like don't bother. If you have like 20, probably look into it. If you have like 50, definitely going to be worth it. If you have more than that, if you have like 100 plus, I wouldn't even want to think about doing that without any sort of system like this. And it is kind of nice because I'm not currently doing it, but with this like gameplay effect stuff, you also have like built-in gameplay cues, which are just like sounds of particle effects that play whenever they happen. So I'm just doing that through my ability because I like being able to like set this up on a per ability basis, and I always get like mixed up and forget that these exist. But if you really want to, you can make the gameplay effect themselves responsible for the visuals and like audio cues to go with their effects. So if you have like a bleeding damage thing, you can every time, I think it's every time this triggers. So especially if you have like during a duration, this is going to trigger like 13 times. So for this, I probably actually will end up doing it. You can set up a gameplay queue that like spawns in let's just try to do it. It's been a while, so I'm probably going to fuck this up. This has changed since the last time I looked at it. What the hell? What? Yeah, so this is the reason that I don't like it, is because it's all done based on tags. I would very much like to just be able to give in something here, but you give this a tag, so in this case that would be like player healing, add sub tag, regen. Right, that's the idea, I think. And then we'd make a gameplay queue, which we'll just do throw here. Somewhere in here. Scroll down to find it somewhere. There we go. So gameplay queue notify actor, and then you've got burst, latent, and looping. In this case, we just want to do a burst, I guess. One of gameplay queue that uses latent actions such as timeline, so that's kind of nice. So it's just an actor that gets spawned in at the same location or attached to whatever is executing these effects. But yeah, the activation being based on tags, I don't like it. I would very much prefer it to just be a like hard asset reference. But again, I guess that for like design purposes, it's nice to be able to do it based on tags. I personally disagree. Well, this is a good opportunity to maybe change my mind, right? So default spawning condition is locally controlled source instigator actor. A chance to play is 100%. Service types, I don't even know what this is, but I don't care. Default placement info. We can attach this to targets and then just do all that. And then where do we do? Okay, burst effect. So burst particle effects. We can add in the Niagara system. Do I just have like healing particles or something like that? I think I do. It allows multiple queues to be done at once. Yeah, but so would like an array of just asset references or like class references. So I don't really think that, unless it's something to do with the fact that gas is very like replication focused, this is also the wrong particle effect because I'm terrible at naming things. But if they just had an array of, hey, execute like these gameplay queues, I think that would be less confusing. For me personally, anyway. Reasonable minds can and will differ on that, I suppose. I guess it's this one instead, right? Yeah, this seems like the one that I made. Nope! Well, it's one that I made, but it's one that I made a long time ago. What the hell? Okay, gameplay heal. Potion effect is what I called it, because fucking, why would you ever be descriptive about anything? Well, it is a potion effect, I guess. They want to keep references out of the assets. Yeah, but I don't really see like a reason for that. Because it does make things more confusing in the end. Because if I set this up now and I go back into this like 3 months later, how in the world am I going to find the exact gameplay queue that's getting triggered based on that tag? Because I can't search my assets based on those tags. I also, before I forget, need to give this thing a tag. Whereas if this was just an asset reference, which I don't really see the reason not to do it, because if it's about like hard referencing and like memory footprint, you need to load this stuff in anyway, because you're going to be using it in a moment. So I don't really see a reason to not use like just the asset or the like blueprint references. Oh, trace stuff and you don't know which tag go to which asset. Yeah, so that's kind of like my only like big issue with the way that gameplay ability works at the moment, is because it is so heavily tag based on a lot of things. I do think it makes it a little less user friendly in a lot of ways, but it's also, that's probably because I'm one dude. If I like had a team where there were people that were working on like one part of this system and then another person that was working on something else entirely, the fact that they don't have to like cross wires and like get in each other's works, but just like say, hey, I am looking out for something with this tag, and then the other employee can say, hey, I just made something with that tag. Them not having to like get in each other's ways, I can see that being a good reason for it to work this way. Because you can just set this up and then you're not gonna like have the issue that you're doing everything yourself. You're gonna like forget everything because it's not your problem. So I suppose in like a team context, this also does make a little bit more sense, maybe. Can you right-click the tag and search for references? I don't think so. Oh, you can. So search for references. Well, that's the wrong one. So yeah, that might help with that. Search for any references. Yeah, so now that just opens a reference viewer. So that's actually no, unless. Do I just need to set the depth higher? Maybe you just need to set the depth higher. So we have the gameplay ability regen, the gameplay effect regen. But this doesn't get me to like the gameplay queue. So yeah, no, that doesn't do that. I was really excited there for a moment, but I don't think that works. Because it will only give me like things that reference this like directly. That being said though, I didn't save the regen thing yet, so maybe... Oh no, okay, no, that does work. That does work. So I can see that this gameplay queue also used this tag. So now I can see all of the blueprints that use this tag. No, that does work. Okay. That significantly improves my opinion on this system. I have just frankly never considered doing that. But yeah, no, that's a lot better. Like instantly, that's going to save me so much trouble in the future. Just let's try and see if regen works now, I guess. For which we do need to make a item for it. So hopefully this doesn't like mess up anything in the... Can I just duplicate this, please? Thank you. And then we map this to regen. I technically would need a different icon for it. I need to make proper icons for all of these anyway. At some point, I guess this is going to be regen for now. Heals HP over time. Just give it a shot. Most important is whether or not it gives me that gameplay queue every single like individual instance of healing. Love you so much, not gay, great content. I mean, well, gay. That's good. No, seriously, that's good to hear. Hit me. Well, not on a gay way. We just discussed that. Just hit me. Thank you. Yep, you see, there we go. So now every time it heals me, it also gives me a little one of those sparks, which that's kind of nice, right? Because a lot of these things that I just like do with instant effects, you know, might as well just spawn them in. But the fact that this is a gameplay effect that itself is responsible for like, hey, apply yourself every X time for like Y duration. And then also like spawn in those particles every single time. That's kind of nice. I like that. So, all that said, we spent 40 minutes trying to make a basic regen spell because I have the attention span of a goldfish. So what do we do now? I've also wanted for a while to make a like fireball like spell that just shoots out like 5 fireballs in different directions, and then after like 0.2, 0.3 seconds, they thanks for the super chat, Nick. Much appreciated. Helps a lot. Yeah, so the fireballs, right? If we have like, I'm on Windows, I can do this now. I still need to find like a Linux alternative for this, but like if we have the player, this fireball spell over here just sends one that way. What I want to do is I kind of want to make one that does this, right? And then when they get to like this spot, roughly, in their trajectory, so that's just going to be like a basic timing thing. I want them to find whichever enemy is closest to them and then start homing in on said enemy. So it could very well be the case 2 of them end up chasing the same target. I think that'll look fun. And that's at the end what we're going for, right? it looking and feeling like a fun time to be alive. So I think we're gonna just copy over the fireball gameplay ability itself as a base to work off of, but let's do a fire multi-shot for its name. I guess it's kind of like in Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. You have like Vision Firaga? Or is it like, or is it Crawling Firaga? Something like that. Which does something similar to this, I think. It's going to be a little different though. Closest enemy. So yeah, we don't really need to do this. I guess if we do this on, well... we can get rid of a couple of things here. First and foremost, we want to make sure that the ability was properly committed or not. I do play an animation for this. I'm just going to keep it in there because why not? And then we set the spawn of fireballs. This is the thing that's gonna be a little iffy. We don't really need to set your rotation, I don't think. I'm not going to disable input. I'm just going to make this a little more straightforward for now, actually. Do think. So we don't even... Let's not play the animation either. We can get back to that at some point in the future. What I want to do is I want to... would it make sense to just make this an actor in and of itself and I just spawn in? No, it wouldn't actually. I hate doing math. I hate doing math specifically to do with circles because it always messes it up. And that's why I like ChatGPT, because it likes doing those simple formulas for me. Because what I wanted to do, obviously, is I wanted to spawn them in a circular pattern around me. I'm thinking 5 for some reason. But I'm thinking, if we change 5 to just being 4, that makes the math just infinitely easier. Because at that point, it's just forward vector times distance, negative forward vector times that same distance. Right vector times the distance, negative right vector times the distance. And that's all that we need to do. So, for no apparent reason and purely for a creative impulse, because this is my creative vision for the game, we're going to go with 4 and not 5. I think that's the way that we're going to go about doing this. So yeah, we get actor forward vector, and then we get actor right vector. We'll make this a variable, why not? Spawn distance, so that's easy to reuse. And then I don't think we need like any of this shit. We do need the magic strength. Probably make this a little less powerful than the normal one. And then we also get actor location. I try to like keep zoomed in for like streaming and recording stuff, because things get very small on a 4K screen if I'm streaming at 1080. I guess we make this into a quick little sub function, right? So we have actor location plus something. Oh, we also need to set the rotation there, don't we? So maybe it is easier to just... I know it's not ideal, but we're going to do it this way. Hold on. We're going to do something entirely different. What we're going to do is I'm gonna just spawn in an actor that has the job of spawning in the other actors. And the reason that we're gonna do it this way is because, again, math, mostly. Flies can go die, please, thank you. I don't know if you guys could hear that. So if we just do this as an actor, right? We can make like fireball spawner. The reason that that's nice is because we can just add a bunch of scene components. Actually, let's add a bunch of arrows. That's 1,000 units. That's a little too far away. Let's set this at like... That's a good question. What are we going to set this at? 250? Let's go 250. It still requires us to do a little bit of extra, like, figuring things out, because, like, I can set this to... This is really annoying. I can now set this to be 250 as well. Well, that will be minus 250. But now we also immediately have their like rotation, right? So if I do want to go with more than just these 4 directions, I can just add some extra arrows. Now, is this comparatively a little bit wasteful? Yes. Yes, it is. Do I care? No. No, I don't think I do, actually, as a matter of fact. Because we're spawning in an entire other actor that's going to, like, destroy itself, and that's not good for, like, memory usage, because it's using up memory that's getting immediately, like, marked up, and that needs to be cleaned up, and it's just not fun, right? But we're also not going to be doing this, like, 100 times a second or anything, because it's going to cost mana. And at some point you're going to be out of mana, you're not going to be doing this anymore. So I don't think it actually matters, like, at all. So let's add a couple of pins. And we can just on begin play, we can for each loop over these, and we can, well, spawn in our homing fireballs. Which I guess that means that I have to find where the original fireball is. That's a good question. That's a fantastic question, as a matter of fact. Let's go into the gameplay ability for this thing. BP fireballs. We're going to make one with homing. Every time Unreal takes a moment to make a new asset, I freak out thinking that my whole life is about to come like crumbling down on me. Like, Unreal slowness anxiety is a real thing that like needs to be studied. Fireball homing. That is the worst typing I've ever done. That's not true, like, even slightly, but it is very bad typing. So this is going to have some code. The fireball is already homing. Okay, what? Well, this needs to work differently anyway. So we get rid of this. What the hell? How did I even... So we have a dark deck. So we do like begin play, right? Begin play. That's what that is. Yeah, fucking duh. Wanted to do a delay on begin play. It's delay for 0.25 seconds, seems pretty good. Quarter of a second. And then I guess we just, like, do I have like get closest, get nearest actor? Find nearest actor, that doesn't really... I guess what we can just do is we can sphere overlap actors, and we can filter on our enemy class. I guess our BP enemy class. And it just does that, tries to find out actors, finds the nearest in them. It doesn't need to do anything else fancy. If it doesn't find anything, I guess it just kind of goes back into the delay and a quarter of a second later tries again. But I'm going to set the radius to be pretty big. Like, I don't know, 3,000? 3,000 seems pretty good. And then object types, I guess we... World static... I don't think any of them are world static. Most of them are just pawns, I think. Maybe some of them are set to world dynamic. Just going to make them all three, and it should be fine. Yes, and then when it does find one, we have... I guess we can just cast to... BP enemy. Do we even need to do that? No, we don't. Doesn't really matter, but we don't need to do that, so we won't. So we'll set its homing to that stuff. And then the velocity, I don't think we need to like update anything about the velocity, to be honest with you. Don't need to set a target actor, don't need to set allow destroy. Because this just does what I do. Yeah, we just... I don't know why it does all this. We just do stuff and things. Just apply damage, there we go. I'm sure there's a reason that I did this the other way in that... what is this other and? I don't think we need another and. Yeah, so I'm sure that speech difficult. I'm sure that there's a reason that we did it that way in the other thing. But for the love of me, I can't imagine what it is. I think it was something to do with it destroying itself before it hit a target because it was technically overlapping with like the player. But then it wasn't triggering overlaps at all or something. It's something weird. Again, this is months ago. I don't have any memory of anything like relating to this at all. But this should pretty much do it. So the only thing that we need to do is reset its initial speed to being something like pretty small, like 400, and then its max speed. Let's set that to like 750. There's nothing like, maybe that's too much. We'll see. Rotation follows velocity. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. No gravity. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Doesn't need to bounce. And then we, I guess, this is fine. We'll make different particles for that at some point. I do kind of like the particles though, I'm not gonna lie. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy, pretty simple. So we make that. Now we go back to our fireball spawn, where we spawn actor from class, fireball homin H, and the transform will be the get world transform of each individual element, and then we can just kind of, I guess we can expose this as a editable explosion spawn base damage. And if we cared, we could expose the owner or the instigator as well, so we can provide that through, but I don't think that I like actually care about that so much. So once it's done all that, we will just destroy. It's not ideal, but it's a hell of a lot faster than doing a bunch of math. And nobody wants to see me do a bunch of math, right? Surely. Now doing a bunch of math. Now that might be interesting. Destroy my life for views. Seems like a fantastic idea. So let's try this, because that's pretty much it. So we, again, make a duplicate of the fireball spell. Fireballs homing. With that, I suppose we probably want the fireball spell itself to not be homing, right? Or at least less homing. Or these being more homing, probably. Let's actually go in there, because there is like a homing strength in here somewhere, I think. Homing. Yeah, so let's just set the homing acceleration to 750. So it starts out slowly, and then once it's got a homing target, it'll probably like speed up a little bit as well. Might look weird, but might look good. I don't know. To be fair, I think it might actually look kind of cool if they don't go to the nearest target, but they go to a random target they find instead. Because that way it'll be flying all over the place and it'll look chaotic and it'll look like super cool. So that might be something that we should check out as well. But for now, let's not get too distracted. Fireball's homing. Fireball... What the hell did I call it? Fire multi-shot. Again, bad at naming things. Fire, but more. Seems about right. Do we have something akin to a texture that I can slap on this? Question, is it easy to migrate from versions upwards, let's say 5.5 to 5.6, or earlier version to a future version? We have a lot of C++ code. Specifically, if you do have C++ code, there might be some issues with it linking to the right engine install that I've had in the past, which I don't remember the exact details. But essentially, like in your IDE, you have like the entire engine in here as well, right? And it might have some trouble, but for me, I think the trouble was mostly that I installed the engine in a different place. Because I think my 5.3 install was on my C disk and my 5.5 install is on my D disk, which gave me trouble. Presumably, if you just install them in the same location, it will just look at that same folder and find the corresponding engine version without too much trouble. I know that I've had some trouble getting that stuff to work in the past though. The code itself shouldn't break. The code itself, largely unless you are using like very like experimental or beta plugins that get updated that have like different code to them. For the most part, the code itself should be pretty much good to go. It's mostly a matter of just like your project files getting a little bit messed up with like linking errors and that kind of stuff, which can be a headache to figure out. Purely blueprint projects generally have no problem at all though. C++ again, because you're also like linking to the like actual engine files and the installs for that. Or for like linking purposes. But yeah, if you have any, it's just try like compiling and see what the issue is. It's likely linking issues, at which point it's very likely that it is because it can't find the proper engine install, at which point you need to provide it in your path variables in your IDE or something like that. It's been a while since I've done that. It can come with some difficulties for sure though. It's not perfect by any means. If you already have a project that's like well on its way, changing engine version generally is a pretty like big decision that you should be aware that if you do, it can potentially like take anywhere from hours to days to fix up unintended like issues that pop up with it. So only if you have a very good reason to update with a project that's already ongoing, should you update. If you're just updating to stay on the latest version, but you don't have like specific features that the latest version offers that you just cannot do without, just don't upgrade. It's mostly what it comes down to. I've seen people saying deleting the intermediate binaries and derived cache data, try to rebuild or something. That's also a thing to do because your cache stuff and your binaries might again still be operating under the assumption that you're using a previous engine version. So this is Fireball, but more. Let's see if it works. Yeah, so if you're just making some like fun experiments and like doing experimental stuff, well, that didn't fucking work, did it? That didn't work at all. It does take MP though, which is weird. I just don't worry too much about upgrading between versions. Just try to do whatever you're doing in the current version, and then the next time you do something, use the new version. It might be seamless to go between them. It might also like take you a day or a couple of days to figure everything out. And if you're not like prepared to do that to gain something very specific, again, it's probably not worth going through all that. So, yeah, what the hell are we doing here? Fire multi-shots. When that's true, we spawn one of you fuckers. Are you not spawning? Now it's spawning them. It's probably instantly deleting, but no, surely not. Maybe it is. Death. Bring out death and destruction. Maybe not the destruction part, just death. Okay, it spawns in death, it spawns in death. Okay, point taken. Why? I guess they just do spawn in too close. No, because the player character, it's when it's not overlapping with the player. What is it overlapping with? That's a fantastic question. Thanks, nobody, for asking it, but fantastic question. What is it overlapping with? All my projects are in Blueprint. I just want to learn C++, but I'm aware of the caveats of upgrading. I mean, yeah, it's a little less straightforward, but yeah. For like upgrading purposes, but also Cube grid. What the hell? How big are these fucking things, man? Are they like humongous? Are they getting spawned in at like scale 1,000,000? I suppose, just to be sure, we might want to just split this and just use this and that. Hello, where's my cursor? Unreal does do that sometimes as well, where it just hides your cursor. Because it feels like it. I open my own feedback form. Sure. There we go. Can't be that difficult, can it? I am so confused. So thoroughly confused. Well, okay, no, this makes sense. No, that actually doesn't make sense, because it should then display me. So that doesn't make sense. So that means that the privilege is getting spawned in at 0. Oh yeah, no, that's the wrong ability. It's this ability. Oh. Yeah, that's not going to do it, is it? Actually, I have an automatic thing for this. Hell yeah. So yeah, that'll fix that right up. I mean, I generally, well, not for everything, but I also like C++ better than Blueprint in a lot of situations. Yeah, there we go. So it does still overlap with world static. So I guess it just needs to spawn up a little bit higher. But that is fairly easily fixable by just going into this fireball spawner and just saying, hey, all of these, you're now like 100 units up. Issue fixed, right? Yeah, so they were just spawning in the forward vector, which means they were spawning at 001, which is a direction, but I was using it as a location, because of course I was. Well, that's pretty good. So let's spawn in a bunch. Oh, that might be a little too much. But yeah, that's I mean that's doing pretty good. I feel like it should probably take a little more MP than this, but they're also not dealing that much damage, to be fair. Seems like a pretty good like crowd control spell, right? they all want to murder the one same thing. Oh, that's kind of bad. So yeah, that's one that we now also have, I guess. Wow, my dude, they're gonna come back down. Jesus. Oh, and then he went through the floor. Of fucking course he did. I want to trigger the perfect dodge, which you can't do with revenge attacks, but just now we're testing stuff anyway. Man, I made the window small. Hold on, let me focus. Still. Now I'm thinking I made the window a little too small. I also don't have any MP, so I can't dodge at all anymore. Yeah, so the C++ being more performant, that's like quite... Oh, I think we talked about this in a previous stream as well, so yeah, that's still wood.
is a little overstated because a lot of the comparisons you see are between C++ and Blueprint within the editor, where the Blueprint isn't like fully like compiled down yet, so it has a bunch of overhead. And there certainly like is a cost to C++ versus Blueprint, but that cost in like shipping builds is actually like a lot lower than a lot of the comparisons you're going to be seeing online about it. But obviously nothing in the world is going to be faster than compiled C++ code because that's just optimized machine code at that point, right? So Blueprint doesn't get compiled down like to C++ in that machine code. It has like its own runtime stuff, I think. Not entirely sure on the details there, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't go down to like direct machine code. C++ does. So you get an edge with C++. It's just if you're comparing things and you see like a lot of people comparing the two online with doing like 10,000 iterations of a for loop and seeing that Blueprint absolutely like shits the bed if you're doing like 10,000 loops over something compared to C++, which just doesn't even like care about it. That's because they're doing it in editor, most likely. If you actually measure that within a build, a shipping build specifically, I think debug builds and development builds also should have the same, but I'm not entirely sure about that. That difference becomes a lot smaller. So largely, like working with C++, I like it because I like working with C++. I like being able to just copy paste some code. I like having like the GitHub Copilot autocomplete because it lets me get a lot of like tedious stuff out of the way, and lets me like actually progress at the speed at which like I'm thinking about things instead of having to do everything that we're doing here, like going there and then like moving this to there and then I'm moving that to. I'm gonna Control C this before I break anything. Like mouse and keyboard is just like, or mouse based stuff is just like slower, right? So I totally get it from a workflow perspective, and I 1,000% agree. If that's the argument, you definitely should do it. If it's mostly like a performance thing, which it's not, because you're also saying like you already do C, C++, C Sharp, that kind of stuff. So it's also just like you're used to programming with like words instead of squares. But it's just something I do see regularly. People like, oh, C++ it performs. It doesn't really. Yeah, get all actors of class is actually not that bad, it turns out. To be fair, I don't know if it is still get all actors of class. If you hover over it, it does like literally say this will be slow if there are many actors of a specified class. It warns you within the, there's a name for these things, but it warns you about this in this text, that it is slow. So people assume that it iterates over every single actor in your level, but it apparently doesn't do that. It just like has like a hash bucket or something. I saw a video about a while ago, which actually means that it is remarkably fast for what it does. It's still like getting a bunch of references to actors, which is gonna like cost, and it isn't like exactly cheap, I imagine still, but yeah. Yeah, it's in that myth busting video that Unreal released like half a year ago, where they also talk about casting not being that big a deal, and suddenly I feel vindicated for the fact I've made like 3 videos about this. Yeah, I don't know how it like exactly works under the hood. But it's apparently not that bad to do. That said, though, get actors with tag, I think. That one still is very slow, because this one actually does iterate over the entire list of actors, they say. So don't use that one too much. Same with casting a lot, there's still some memory footprint. That's the thing, though. That's if you do it wrong. if you like casting to, I don't know the proper terminology because I'm like not a trained software engineer. Being 1,000% honest with you, but if you have like your like inheritance hierarchy, right? You have like this is actor, and this would be like pawn and like character. And then you have like a bunch of blueprints building up of that. If any random ones, and we have like a bunch of these branches, you know how inheritance works. If any random ones of these are like casting to like a endpoint on this tree, that's where you like run into trouble. But if you kind of like keep, again, made a video about this, if you kind of keep like the C++ thing, but you do it in Blueprint, where you just make an empty class that doesn't have any assets in it and only has code in it, right up here, and you cast to that instead, the memory footprint is so ridiculously low that it actually like straight up just does not matter. You're effectively just casting to a C++ class at that point, which is just code, with a little bit of overhead because blueprints do take up a bit more memory than equivalent C++ stuff, but obviously if you add something in any of these child classes that you need to access, you need to cast to those. But like this is also just generally, this is an issue that people do, is they just like cast to the endpoint instead of the topmost one of the thing that they specifically need at that time. Is performance better if I use cast or an interface? For performance, it doesn't really matter. The thing that you get with interfaces is you gain flexibility in like your code architecture in general. Because suddenly you're not like hard coding this thing can tell this thing to do that thing. You can just say, hey, I want to be able to tell any arbitrary object to do this thing, and then that object will take care of it on its own, which makes your entire like code base a lot more flexible. So that's mostly what you're gaining, to be honest. And what you're gaining is unless you start making casts with extra steps with interfaces, which some people do, you're saving yourself a hard reference, meaning that you gain a little bit of like memory footprint, which are not like hard loading into memory when you might not need it. But if you're casting like cleverly, if you're thinking about how you're casting, that memory issue actually like is very easy to avoid. At that point, there still is reasons to use interfaces over casting specifically to a specific class to do a specific thing, because if you want to be able to do that with another object that might not be in that part of the inheritance hierarchy, setting up an interface means that you can do it to any object, which is really nice. But like the interfaces being the Jesus that's going to come to save us from the evil devil worshipping casters, it is a little inaccurate, and that's how a lot of the Unreal community online seems to see it, and that's not really like what's going on like at all. Granted, you don't want to cast all over the place, but that advice gets then misinterpreted and misconstrued, and yeah. Interfaces are just like moving raw data around. Yeah, they're pretty good for that. interfaces will very often be essentially like generalized getter functions. Sometimes they also give like commands, but a lot of the times you will end up with interfaces that essentially like do this, right? Get ability system component. Anything that implements this interface can just give its ability system components. I do the exact same thing in my inventory system. I have a get inventory components. Matter of fact, it's called get inventories in this case because I can have more than one inventory component, obviously. It just gets you an array of all the inventories on any given thing. Just as easily as implementable as just making an array and sending it through. So, other spells, because this spell effectively works as well. There's a bit of fine-tuning that needs to be done with all of these, obviously. But more spells, more spells. Do we have more spells? I've made 2. Holy shit. Go on for an hour and a half, I've made 2. I need to get my shit together, man. At one point I had like a document with... I don't know if I still have that. I can look at it. Maybe I do. I had a document with different spell IDs that I wanted to implement, but that's yeah, so that's annoying. At some point, I used like a Trello alternative because Trello didn't offer me exactly what I wanted. And then at some point, I got a subscription to that service to try it out, and I quite liked it. Having some automation with like applying like different colors and tags to tasks that are like either in progress or whatever, automatically based on like where they are and what column and what like board. Really nice. Then I decided, you know what, actually, this is costing a lot of money because you'd need to like get a subscription for at least 5 seats, and I'm just like one guy, so I'm paying like $30 a month for this. Like, fuck off. But all the projects that I had in there were marked as being like premium projects now, so I can't actually access the things that I put into it anymore because they're marked up with things that are part of the premium plan. So yeah, that caused me to go away from that service altogether because that's just bullshit. But that also means that I don't have access to that list of potential abilities that I wanted to make that I had in there. Right now I've moved on to ClickUp, which is actually like kind of fantastic, to be honest with you. That's my dashboard. Like if I go over to ClickUp and I make sure that I'm like on my own board and not like anything from any clients or whatever. Yeah. So I don't have any bad information on here, right? I don't think so. Yeah, that's probably fine. Yeah. We're just gonna fucking go with it. And if I get docs, who cares? But I have like a calendar here where you can, I guess, see my upload schedule for the next week. And this is a overall calendar from like 4 different boards, right? So I have a different board here with all the potential like course IDs that I want to do, like the series that I want to do. This is for the turn-based RPG that I'm developing right now. These are course IDs, whatever, and then after I've done this, I can like move things to next stage. Put them in the calendar specifically for this like production like type, and then I can do the same with like my shorts, right? There's no shorts. I need to get to work on making more shorts. It seems. Fuck. But the nice thing is that I can like all these different aspects of the channel have their own space that I can work in so that they don't get in each other's ways, and I also have one like master calendar where I can see literally everything that I have planned to do. Oh, I still have some shorts lined up for later this month or next month. So this is like actually like specifically 1000% what I wanted. ClickUp is really, really quite good. Also, if anybody was curious what the next month of video uploads is going to be, it's going to be roughly this. Have at it. It's mostly going to be the quest system, using state trees, and then starting the turn-based RPG project, which is going to be fun. Still need to record that. That's going to be like this weekend probably. Anyway, so abilities. Anybody got an idea? I would love it if anybody had any ideas as to what kind of abilities I could make, because at this point I've got like 14. Remember when I said that I wanted 50? Yeah. It's going to be kind of rough, I think, getting to 50. I guess some defensive spell wouldn't hurt, right? Like making an ability that would like halve the damage you take for the next X time. Right now I'm working on a terrain system using PCG. I need to look more into PCG as well, man. It's just every time I look into it, I'm like, I don't care about this. But I really need to look into it at some point, because I want to make videos on it, because there's not that much video content on it. But there is like plenty of written stuff for me to like learn about it and experiment with it. It's just one of those things, man. So fire, lightning, ice, and wind are the core elements. I don't really have, like, I have damage types, but I can easily add to those to be like 1000% honest with you. This is, fuck. Can I just look for enums? Is that a thing that I can do? So yeah, I have damage types. Here we go. The damage types that I do have right now are neutral, sword, sight, specific damage types for each of the weapons that I don't have names for yet, and then fire, ice, lightning, and wind. But if we end up adding like fucking earth to this or something, I don't mind that either. Like, this is expandable. I make this an enum because it's going to be more easily expandable that way. Yeah, just for what I'm making at the moment, I don't think PCG really like fits very much with what like I require at the moment. But maybe especially when I start doing a little bit more with art assets, maybe I can make it look a little bit better with procedurally generated like vines or some stuff. Well, that's not like right now what I'm focusing on, and there's so much to do, both in terms of making videos and making the game. Turns out doing that side by side, while also like having a real job is a lot of things. Who could have guessed, right? So let me just think, what can we do? We can just kind of take a few of these abilities and make a different element variation of them, right? That's something that we could do. Like we have this Forking Thunder spell somewhere, Lightning Trail. Could also do something with that, maybe. Is it Thunder? I don't think it's Thunder. It's Chain Lightning, that's it. We can just make an ability that does something like the Chain Lightning. Yeah, I think we can do that. We can make a Chain Lightning ability. Just so that everybody is aware of what we're talking about here, by the way, for Chain Lightning. Chain Lightning is zappy zap mofos a lot. I'm so descriptive. it just like forks. Oh, that's the wrong one. Hold on, wrong spell. Which one is it? It's got to be this one. Also zappy zap mofos a lot. Again, very descriptive. It does this, where it strikes out against one nearby enemy, and oh, it doesn't end. That's right. I had that issue earlier today as well. But it strikes out against one nearby enemy and then forks off to other nearby enemies, and it does that a limited amount of times. I don't exactly remember how it works. But we need to end this ability at some point as well, because I don't think we do that apparently. We activate ability, and then I guess at some point we don't like reach this end ability. Though I suppose there's no real like reason. Well, that's why. Okay. I guess just setting this to 2 seconds instead is probably good enough. Yeah, so I'm thinking we can just kind of do this, but instead of forking off a different like bit of chain lightning all contained within like this ability like this, what we could do is we could make something like an ice thing, where once it hits something, it like breaks off a couple of shards of ice that go into other things, and then if those hit things, it breaks off a couple of even smaller shards, and so on and so forth. And at some point, like it'll do that 2 or 3 like steps down, and then it'll just stop. You kind of get the same thing, but with a different element. Also, meteor strikes or AoE on the floor. I mean, that's kind of those are both pretty good. Just like doing a general like AoE attack. The ability has something for like aiming AoEs as well, I believe. I need to look into that. I haven't like used that before. And I need to think about whether or not that actually like makes sense with my control schemes as well. It might not. But still, we could do something like an AoE attack where it just spawns in something against whichever like, character you're locked on at the moment. And then just anything that happens to be nearby just gets caught in that blast. Poisoning enemies. Also is a good one. Grenade style with pushback. Yeah, so something like that, right? But that, I'd need to do a little bit more tinkering around to like actually figure out a good way to like preview, because that's what I've been looking into. Aside from doing the turn-based RPG as well, is a good way, because Unreal I think has stuff for this, but I've been meaning to look into this, I should say. Like a good way to like preview where you're going to be like throwing your stuff. Because Unreal, first and foremost, like is a game engine that's like made around the idea of, well, shooter games, multiplayer shooter games. You can make a whole bunch of other stuff within it, but like that's primarily where it came from, right? So surely it has something for that. Also some winds to push or pull. Yeah, so I do have a magnet spell which pulls things in toward you. I've thought about doing the opposite as well, a wind spell that just pushes things away from you to create like a moment of levity within like hectic combat. I'm a little hesitant to do that
because that does kind of break up like the flow of combat, I'm afraid. I would much rather, and I kind of have a good in-between that I made. I have this, I think it's in here somewhere, right? Maybe it's not. There's a time slowing spell. Oh, yeah, time spell, it's the leaf. That just slows the enemies in your immediate area. Or just the closest enemy, one or the other, I don't remember. I guess we can look at it. What does it do? Yeah, so it takes every actor within 1,000 units and temporarily sets their time dilation to 0.1, and after 10 seconds it sets it back. So yeah, and ability set everything back to 1. So that kind of creates that moment of not everything is trying to kill me right now. I can breathe for a moment, but it also doesn't physically remove those enemies from you too far. Meaning that you can also use it a little bit more offensively, I think. So I think that is probably like the opposite of the magnet spell in that regard. So I don't think I necessarily want to have like a pushing spell, but a pulling spell is like, yeah, 100%. Already have that now. But I think I like the poison cloud idea. I need to make a... Didn't I at some point have a to-do list in Engine somewhere? Probably did, I don't remember. I need to write these down somewhere. I'm just going to write them down in the Discord for now. Can you DM yourself in Discord? That would be nice. I don't know. What about a spell that infuses elemental damage onto your weapon? That could work. Thing is that the weapons themselves also are damage types already. And specific enemies are also going to be weak to specific weapons, which is a very artificial way to do that. Instead of like doing that through game design, it's just artificially they do bigger number. That's why Obsidian comes in handy. Yeah, so I'm kind of thinking that I should probably make a ClickUp board here as well for that. But if I'm going to do that, I probably want that to be an entirely separate space because I don't want those. I don't want to deal with that right now. So I'm going to make a ClickUp board for this at some point. But for the time being, I guess I just put it in here. In Discord. Ability IDs. Poison Cloud. I love that one. Gameplay tags for your damage stuff. No, I have an enum for that. So yeah, it's this enum that we see here is all my damage types. Reason being is that because of this I have a data table somewhere where I can have all the resistances in one data table. Because I effectively have a data table with every enemy in the game in it, that then has a map to go along with it for how they respond in percentages to each damage type. And I guess that technically, there's no reason to not do that with gameplay tags, but I also, I don't know, this kind of works. They're sound as though they should be separate, the elements and the weapon damage. Yeah, no, but that's no. That's they're part of the same system. Because the elemental damage is like strictly for the magical spells to have a little bit of variation. The main reason that I even have like a damage type system to begin with is because of the different weapon damage types. Because I want certain things to just be weak to certain weapons. And the weapons themselves don't necessarily like have any reason to have like an elemental damage type on top of that as a result. Like the weapons themselves are kind of elements in that regard. Like some weapons are going to be weak against some enemies, and some are going to be weak against them, which kind of like creates this rock paper scissors thing around the whole dungeon. Meaning that if you've done one specific dungeon and you've gained a weapon from the boss of that dungeon, what you then create is one specific new dungeon is going to be weak to whatever you just like obtained, right? So at that point, after doing one dungeon, you kind of have a most optimal path to go through if you want to. And then the question becomes, which one do you do first so that the other ones become easier as a result. So that's kind of like the idea behind that. Planning to do the same with data tables, but applying status effects with tags depending on elements or physical damage. Yeah, so like anything, if we do something like the poison thing that we're thinking about right now, like that's all going to be like gameplay tags. Because poison's probably not going to be like a damage type necessarily. It'll just be a status effect, and status effects are gameplay tags. Maybe poison will be a damage type. Just to make sure that it's always... I guess poison will always be neutral damage, more or less, now. But I could make it a damage type if I wanted to. I don't know. I'm going to just scroll up real quick. And Meteor Strike, I also like that one. Meteor Strike. Sephiroth is going to sue me. AoE rocks from the floor is what I'm thinking. I kind of like... Has anybody here played Kingdom Hearts 2 and fought Lexius? Because if so, I feel your pain. I'm kind of thinking about one of the attacks like that, right? Where you just like slam down on the ground. I'm not sure whether or not I want to make that a special ability for a weapon though. Because I think I kind of might want to do that as a special ability for a weapon and not for a magic spell. Because every weapon also has its own like spell that is associated with that weapon. That doesn't take up any like inventory space. It's just like when you have that weapon equipped, your special action will be that spell. Ice causes slippage. That's probably like not relevant to what we're doing here. Fireball or lightning ball that just circles around the player. Kind of already have that as well. Kind of janky, but I do think it also spirals out, so like we're on the same wavelength here. But this, I think, is the spell that does that. So yeah, I think it might need to be in combat for it to work. Hold on. Yeah, so it's also really overpowered, which makes sense because, again, it's very much based off of a move in Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, which is very overpowered as well. What I need to do, I think, is I might just need to replay Birth by Sleep and just like steal all of their commands. You know what? There might actually be a really good reason to replay Coda. Because Coda also has some like interesting stuff. The thing is, Godhead is kind of a shit game. And Birth by Sleep is not. So that's why I'd probably rather replay Birth by Sleep. But yeah, those are some good ones, I think. But yeah, the rocks from the ground is probably going to be... I imagine that one of the weapons that I end up with is a hammer. And I think that this works fairly well for like a special attack for a like thick, heavy warhammer. So I'm probably going to save it for that. But like a meteor strike is probably... How would we like do that though? Not from a technical perspective, but from a... Because initially the thing that I'm thinking about is just... There's kind of a little bit of an issue, I just realized, with meteor strikes. And I don't know if that's a big issue. It probably isn't, to be fair with you. So we'll probably like do something like that. Or maybe I'll just like style it differently and have it be essentially the same thing. Or maybe I'll do both. Because again, having variations is probably a good thing. But if we go into like the actual like game world, right? I just want to do a thought experiment to see if you guys come up with the same problem immediately that I thought about just a second ago. Because if not, we're probably like good to go. But if you do come up with the same issue immediately, we're probably like, is there any reason that you could think of that if I fly through these areas over here, that a meteor-based attack might be like a little bit strange? Right? Well, it's not combat here, but you kind of like get the point at this. This is like just a tutorial loop. Anybody want to take a guess as to what I'm talking about? Does anybody share my concern? Because I think it probably, like, we could probably just ignore that as an issue. But I'm wondering whether or not we are all... Was a meteor-based attack in Final Fantasy Strange. I mean, it was kind of annoying that every time you get hit by it, it takes 5 minutes, but aside from that... So, yeah, the issue is that the entire thing takes place indoors, which is... I think it might be a little weird if a meteor just starts like clipping through the ceiling. And the other thing is, because Final Fantasy, specifically if we're talking like Final Fantasy VII, where meteor is like a big thing, I think it's also a spell in other games, right? Anyway, it is a turn-based RPG, which does add an extra layer of abstraction to your game world, which means that things can just be a bit more abstracted, which means that you can get away with stuff that's a little weird. Since this is a action RPG instead, you're like way more inside of the actual moment, inside of the world, which means that you can get away with a little bit less abstraction, I think. But yeah, if it comes through a magical portal, like that kind of stuff, that's like immediately a pretty good answer to this, right? Just like add in a circle with wiggly effects and make it come through that, and you're probably good to go. Like that's actually a fantastic idea. So yeah, that's actually probably the way that we should do that then. So what I'm thinking right now is, and at this point I don't think we're going to be doing much more coding. So if you're here for coding, I'm just like telling you we're just kind of brainstorming at this point, being like 1000% full right with you. I'm going to stick with the meteor strike. I also want to do something like a AoE attack from the ground that just like, I'm kind of envisioning like kind of like a demon jaw like popping up and like jumping down on some enemies or something. It's probably going to be a bit less like work intensive than that, because that sounds like a lot of work to make. But I'm going to call this Darkness Demon Bite from Floor Area of Effects. Yeah, a damage indicator on the ground so people can easily see what where they're going to be damaging stuff. That's kind of like what I'm thinking. Should I make my AoE attacks something that you aim? Because that really doesn't fit with just about anything else that I'm doing. And in that regard, I still am like leaning very Kingdom Hearts-ish, and generally speaking, aiming is done for you in those games, because it just aims at whatever you're like currently focused on, like whatever your like either soft or hard lock on target is. So I think I'm probably gonna go with that, because that way you don't have like yet another thing to worry about, and it will maybe kind of be a little bit weird if suddenly I have like abilities that you like need to aim in that regard. But still could give you like an indication around the enemy that you're like trying to target or something. But it's more likely just gonna be a one and done, spawn it in, maybe plain animation, of course, type of deal is what I'm thinking right now. And then just everything that you target, that is around your target, that you just hit by happenstance, is just like, that's good. AoE attack from the ground, anything from ground spikes or eldritch tentacles or a black hole. So I had this. Listen, right? I saw this TikTok like 2 years ago, and I'm seriously considering doing it because I would think it's the funniest shit in the world. It's probably gonna be actually a terrible idea. But this TikTok or YouTube short, I don't remember what it was. It might have been a fucking Instagram reel for all I care. They had the idea of giving your player in a game a weapon that one-shots every enemy that you come across. But it doesn't actually one-shot them. It teleports them to the end of the game. So if you overall rely on this thing, what you end up doing is you make the end of the game impossible for yourself. So I'm kind of thinking that would be a fun spell to do, right? Is having a spell that kills an enemy, but it doesn't just kill an enemy, right? Because if we... It was a D&D reel. You've seen the same video. Great. If I were to do that, it wouldn't just kill the enemy. It would make the enemy disappear. And to like tell you what the difference is, enemies in my game work as a soul slide. That is, they stay dead until you get to a checkpoint, at which point, if you go back to an area, they will all respawn. I'm thinking, if you use this ability on a specific enemy, it doesn't respawn. It also doesn't give you experience. It just disappears. It gets the fuck out of your way. It won't work on bosses. Then, pre-final boss, there will be a room. If you didn't use this ability at all, it'll be empty, right? But if you use this ability, you're going to be in for a bad time, because it's not opening up that boss door until you've defeated every single one of these fuckers. The issue is that it's going to destroy your frame rate if you do this a lot. Because if you do this on like every enemy in the game, and they can all spawn into one room, you're going to be playing at 2 FPS. And there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, that will just cause the game to crash. So I like that idea. And the reason I'm talking about this is the like black hole IDs. You could kind of like make this like that black hole spell. But it would be really funny. Is the thing. And wouldn't even be like that difficult to code either, right? Because you just have a save file, like a thing in your save file that just keeps track of anytime this spell's used on an enemy, like save its class and a GUID, and in GUID just check like should I activate myself at all or not. And then just in that last room, just like loop over that array and just spawn one of every single one of those classes. Unless you spawn them in waves, I could do that. I could just like loop over the first 10, spawn them in. Once they're done, that's the thing that I could do. Yeah, that would kind of fix the issue of there being a fucked up. I kind of do like the idea. Have you tested the maximum number of enemies in an area before the frame rate dies? Yeah, so funnily enough, and I might be able to improve that a little bit. At the moment, it seems like it's not actually even like GPU bound that much. I mean, I tested it on a 4090, so that might be. But it bottlenecked on CPU way sooner because they all have like pathfinding that they're doing, like not consistent, like constantly because they like pause. But like all of that pathfinding happening was the thing that was killing my frame rate in the end. Which just means that I need to make sure that they're not all pathfinding at the same time. So maybe I need to have some kind of like manager that manages their AI states instead. But I could pretty consistently like get like 20 to 30 enemies on screen and keep it at a reasonable frame rate. Anything beyond that was starting to eat away at my FPS like quite a lot. But if I do them in waves of like 10 enemies at a time, that could kind of, yeah, I think I'm going to do the black hole thing because I like the idea. Do you guys hate the idea? Or do you also kind of like it? Because I think it's funny, but it might also be infuriating. Black hole send to end of game spell. It might also kind of cause you to softlock yourself. Because if I'm going to do this, again, the enemy's going to be gone. They're not going to be respawning either. So if you do this with every enemy, you're going to reach the end of the game at level 1. We'll test it on a 4090. I do have my desktop PC is a Steam Deck. I haven't tested that on the Steam Deck yet. I tested the main game itself on the Steam Deck. But yeah, I test everything on a Steam Deck because I want to make sure that it runs on a Steam Deck. Because if it runs on a Steam Deck, it's going to run on most reasonable like PCs as well. Is my idea. Yeah. Okay. So I'm seeing people saying do it. I've listed it. We're going to do it. We can always decide that it ends up being an optional thing that you can do. If it ends up being actually like too infuriating to deal with. But I kind of like the idea. I mean, it's a consequence of your decision. Seems fun. Yeah, but it's just, the thing is, if you don't know this going in, like the 12 people watching this will know this going in, right? And then maybe a handful of other people that watch as I go to implement this. Everybody else is not going to know what the hell this spell does, aside from it gets shit out of your way. I guess I do want to like disincentivize overusing it a little bit by not giving experience for those deaths. So that's something, maybe. But I can see that being quite annoying as well. But I like the idea so much that I think we're going to go for it. I also liked spikes from the floor. Which is kind of like a Sammy. Holy shit. Not compensating for anything at all, spikes from the ground kind of would be a fun, like, middle of the ground AoE, where if you have, like, your AoE area, which I think this is... Imagine this is a circle. Instead of it being everywhere, it would just be where the spikes pop up, right? Which could be in random locations within, like, a certain... It actually probably would be inside of a square, because that's just, like, again, easier math. So it would have like one spike that pops up like actually like through the enemy that you're targeting, and then like in random locations around it as well. So it would be kind of like semi AoE. I guess the player will have to discover that when they enter that particular stage later on. Yeah, at the end of their save file, which might make it kind of like annoying. So maybe we'll put that as a like optional side thing where you can like get an achievement for it or something. Would be a fun achievement to do. Like you could even put a couple of achievements there, like one for doing it with 10 and one doing it for like 50 enemies throughout the game. And then I would be the kind of dickhead that would put in an achievement for doing this to every enemy in the game. And then fighting through them all. I guess if you really want to like get that achievement though, you can just grind on those enemies first until you're like super high level and then start like sending them all off to that area. Seems like a fun kind of challenge run kind of built into the game, potentially. Now the question is, do you warn them? Oh no. Nobody's getting warned. Like the flavor text for the spell will just be, they seem to disappear? Question mark. And they'll figure it out, I'm sure. Not in time, but they will at some point. Maybe it tells that the spell will work when you enter that level. Yeah, so definitely like when you are about to face all of them, it'll have to tell you like, hey, you did this to yourself. Achievement unlocked, can't hide from responsibilities. It'll be something like that, yeah. So right now we have the Poison Cloud, we have the Meteor Strike, we have the Darkness Bite from the ground, which actually I kind of liked them being like Cthulhu tentacles as well. So we'll probably... Oh, I'm still zoomed in. I'm just going to make like one of those as well. Like tentacles... Small hand's eye from the ground. AoE. And they're going to kind of be similar, I think, to the spikes from the ground, but they will be a little bit more homing. So what I'm thinking for those, we're going to zoom back in, we have like Mistle Tentacle number 1, and that'll spawn in a handful around them. But even if they don't exactly overlap with an enemy in that range, they will... I'll have to do real-time IK for this, which I need to figure out anyway, how that works within Unreal, because I've been procrastinating that for a while as well. But they will kind of like reach out within a certain radius to nearby enemies. So if we have like an enemy over here, right, this guy can like reach out to it. Which makes it different from just the spikes. We call it a problem solver. I kind of like problem solver, to be honest. Soft block spell is also nice. It's a little on the nose compared to problem solver, but it's definitely descriptive. Okay, so that's Poison Cloud, Meteor Strike, Darkness Bite from the ground, non-hentai tentacles from the ground, the Black Hole sends to the end of the game, which again, I like that spell so much, that ID. Just Spike from the ground, so that's 6 more spells that we can do. And then AoE Rocks from the ground, which is a 7th, but I don't really think that we're going to do that as a spell. I think that's going to be the special ability for a hammer. That makes most sense to me. So yeah, with all that, if we add that to the list that we already have, which is 14 plus 6, we'll be at 20. I don't think the idealized idea of it having 50 spells all in total is going to be a thing. I just kind of like threw that out there as an idea, but I don't think 50 is reasonable. But we'll make... Oh yeah, hold on. We can do the icicle shards as well. Icicle shards split on impacts. So that's 1 more that we can do. How do you make tentacles non-hentai? Well, we better figure that out, because otherwise my game's gonna get... I was gonna say demonetized, but I kind of forget that Steam is not YouTube. Yeah, no, it might actually do well on Steam with an enum. Enum for the tentacle type, hentai, non-hentai. You can use a rule for that though, right? Because there's not really many more options than yes or no for that. Oh yeah, I also wanted to... we can probably do that. I think I want to do a inverse healing spell. Something that takes away HP and gives you back MP. That's going to be super easy to implement as well, right? Because we can just take the gameplay ability for heal. I'm just going to call it inverse heal for now. Or like mana heal. And we can do a regen version of that as well. That's 2 more spells again. The amount of anti-shits that pops up in my store. That's your algorithm. But yeah, you're right. Like, there's a lot of porn games on Steam. Might even drive more sales. It's probably, like, in some places not, but in other places definitely, yeah. I'm not going to do that though, because it's a lot of animation work, to be frank with you. I don't like doing that. Like, that's almost like 90% of the reason, because I do think that like well-made like adult entertainment games, to call them that, are probably like a pretty good market to be in, I imagine. If you like make them good, and you don't even need to like make them super good. You just need to make them good enough, right? But they like do lean a lot on like having not shit animation, I imagine, and that's like something that I'm not good at. But otherwise, I feel like you could make like a lot of money there. So if any animators are watching this, that's your target market, man. My friend works on not safe for work games. You're okay. And does it make good money? Because I bet it does. Oh my god, you know what the ultimate fucking... Well, probably actually wouldn't work that well. I was going to say, you know what the ultimate actual like target market is for this type of stuff? It's just making like a furry game. But the idea behind like furries spending a lot of money on like art commissions is because they want like specific like highly custom stuff for like their own characters, right? So like making a generalized furry porn game probably wouldn't actually work that well.
just mocap for those games. I mean, it makes the games more fun to make, I suppose. Yeah, so gameplay effects. Did we already? I am not at it today, but you probably could tell that from all my bullshitting. I guess we just add another one of these, and we can just copy this over. So it adds in the mana, and it subtracts the health. So we just do health, setting magnitude to -1. Yeah, there we go. And that game can be called Zoo Pals. I mean, I'm not saying that it would be a bad idea. Well, I actually did just say that that would be a bad idea, probably. But not because I think it's like a bad thing to make. It's just that I do think that like the reputation that like furries have for commissioning like very expensive art is probably because they want like specifically like customized to what they want and not something generalized. Because if you want something generalized, there's like plenty of porn out there on the internet, right? I imagine. Make a game where you can import your own avatars. That is... Okay, but that actually like is a good idea, because then you can have like a side hustle to your own fucking game to make the models. So you can sell them the game for like $20, and then you can sell them the models for like 500. But isn't this just VR chat? Didn't we just invent VR chat? I think we just invented VR chat, to be honest. Exactly, like VR chats. That game already exists. Let's try to keep focus for half a second. So that I can actually like finish making whatever this temporary effect is. So this would be mana to... Well, no, this would be HP to mana. VR chat with extra steps. Slightly less tits. I mean, I imagine the same amount of tits, just with more hair on them. Right? So I think we want to do this the opposite way, right? So we want to spawn this in at like 250 radius, and then the velocity would be... Can we just set these to minus instead? Does that work that way? Kinda, but it also kinda sucks. But I guess that's because they are being given random, not to a certain... Okay, so we don't give them a velocity. Probably attraction force, I guess. But that then goes into the particle update, not there. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, it's a radius. Needs to just be bigger. That actually accidentally looks kind of cool. Okay. If we then go into scale color, why is this not... it's because the initialized particle... Yeah, so we'll set that to being white. And then scale color will be a gradient curve. I wonder how many devs secretly actually have a side hustle for those games to fund that main one. Although any game is hard to make, so maybe not. Yeah, I think like full on like extra game development, making like erotic games. Like, if you're doing that, you're probably like doing it as a full-time gig, I would imagine. But surely, like a lot of like artists on development teams, um, are doing like art, because again, that kind of art does pay like fairly well. So that's good enough for now. Let's also go back to the animation level where we can test everything easily. But yeah, I imagine there's not too many people like double dipping with different game projects like that. Unless it's something like, what is it, that anime booby clicker game that's just like clicker heroes but with anime boobs, which, to be fair, is a fantastic idea. I can assure you they do. Like full extra game development. Well, yeah, most people working in like the game development space, or not even like working, or just trying to get into it or whatever. But there's a lot of freelance work. There's very, very little chance of anybody getting into a situation where you're like successful enough making just the things that you make to like make money with. Like generally speaking, most of the income does come from like freelance stuff. The question is specifically like how much of that is porn, I guess. That's kind of the thing, right? You get bored of it, but that's what a job is. Like if you do something regularly enough for long enough, it's going to start being annoying if you have to do it. Say health to mana, and then we do, inside of the potion effect, we do health. Oh, god damn it. Did I call it HP to mana? I did. I am so inconsistent with how I name things. But frankly, I'm amazed that I can like, even maintain the focus to do anything while I'm chatting with you people. It's just like an excuse to have like substance for, or substitute for social interaction to begin with, right? Yeah, we'll make a regen version of this as well, and if we do that, we might as well set this up to be a gameplay queue instead. Same with this. Which makes his ability a bit easier as well. You guys have social interaction? No, that's why we're all here. Because we don't. Right? I'm not the only one, right? Hopefully. That'll be awkward. Real awkward. Duplicate. HP to mana. But man, do I like the fact that it renders us custom thumbnails in the editor. I spent way too long figuring out how to set that up. But it works and it makes me happy. This is a good temporary one. HP, mana heal. So I have health to mana, I have HP to mana, I have mana heal. Is there any other ways that I could even like describe this at all at this point? I probably need to put a check-in on whether or not we have... We need to do a little bit more math. I just realized. But let's check whether or not it works to begin with. Right, we have these fireballs. Fantastic. Then we heal. Yeah, so that just straight up doesn't do anything, does it? Why not? Because reasons, I guess. I have way too many of these things open to begin with. Let's just open a couple, or close a couple of these that we're not using anymore. That's a bit better. Yeah, so health to mana should add to the mana and subtract from the health, and it didn't do that because... Yeah, because of this. That makes sense. So what we need to do is we need to check this for the mana instead. And then we also need to make sure that we only subtract and add as much as is like reasonably allowed. So I'm thinking maybe adding in a regen version of this is not a good idea. Because there's gonna be a problem with like subtracting stuff and maybe it accidentally killing the player if they like get greenlit to use this ability and then get damaged. And then like a regen tick later, they get to 0 HP. Because this doesn't technically like trigger the damage code. So it's not going to check for death. Because why the fuck would it, right? Well, because of this. So I don't think doing a regen version of this is going to make a lot of sense. But what we will do is we will do a little bit of math to figure out what the most amount is that we can get. So we take the max, no, the minimum. Maximum. I always get this mixed up. I think we want to take the minimum floats. Yeah, we want to take the minimum between 50, which is going to be the maximum that we want to take, and then the HP stuff. So I guess we just want to take our current health -1. So it always leaves us at least 1 HP. And then the difference between our max and our current mana. So our max mana minus our current mana is our mana delta. And we're going to take the minimum between these as well, I guess. Right? That makes sense. Because if this is less than this, we want to take this. No, this should be a clamp. Because we want to take this, clamped by that, going into there. So at most we want to take this. I guess minimum will be just 0, and that's going to go into there. I think this is the math that we want to do. So this will prevent us from taking more HP than we are filling in with mana, and it will prevent us from Sudoku, in theory. So let's give that another shot. We put this in there, and then we put another spell in there with it, and then didn't do nothing. But now it's still
Oh, ooh, that didn't seem right. That doesn't seem right at all. Oh, because it also... Yeah, no, that makes sense. What it's doing is it's also applying one word at a time the committability, which means that it is going through and trying to figure out the mana cost for this, which is 50. So let's, I guess, just not do that. Just set this to 0. I guess we maybe just like don't need to commit this ability to begin with. We also, if committability fails, do need to like anti-ability. So do cats count for social interaction? Kinda, not really. Are we talking like anime still, like anime cat girls? Because that would kind of count. It would kind of be weird. But if it's like a real person, just like wearing cat ears, we can kind of like we can let that slide. But if we're just talking like a cat, not very social, cute though. The animal, that is. Yeah, so that seems to work fairly well. Cool. So we have our self-sacrifice spell. That's a way better name than HP to mana. Let's also give it that, like, sacrifice. That's still misspelled, probably. I don't really give a shit. So yeah, that's another one that I've wanted to make for a while. Yeah, I'm gonna stay away from doing a regen version of that because that seems like asking for trouble and require me to like actually like damage. Maybe it would be a bad idea to check on attribute change for the like whole damage thing as well. Yeah, that probably seems like a good thing to do to begin with, to be honest with you. But I don't want to create a situation where people like commit to using that spell, thinking that with their current HP they will live. I know that is a choice that the player themselves makes, but it feels like it just doesn't feel like that's gonna add that much, you know. And it feels like most of what it's going to add is going to be frustration. And I think that is... it's okay to frustrate players a little bit, of course. You don't want to like just give them literally like a dopamine machine of only feeling good. You want to create like peaks and valleys in like their emotional state so that their emotional state like is actually like registered a little bit more. Congratulations, I have a degree in some form of visual art. I know how this works. Well, kind of. But that's probably like giving something that's going to actively probably only frustrate the players is, I don't think, a good idea. So we're gonna not do that. Still, we have those like 7 IDs plus 1, which would get us to a total of 22. You know, getting to 30 might actually be reasonable at that range. Getting to 50, which I said at the start of the stream and I've been saying for a while, getting to 50 was including the summons that I have. But as I said at the beginning of the stream, not a lot of people were here yet. But I don't think I'm going to move forward with doing these. I did these as a test, and they are kind of broken at the moment anyway, because they don't really like work with the stage 3 implementation. And they barely worked when I did their behavior tree version as well, and I just don't really like the idea of them. You know what? I'm going to commit. These are just the spell assets. Don't worry. The ability still exists should I change my mind at any point in the future. But this will mean that they don't show up in my test world when I... This is going to take a moment. The line thickness does decrease at a distance. It just doesn't do it very well in the viewport like this. But when I actually play the game, the line thickness does decrease with distance to the point where at a very far distance it doesn't have a line thickness anymore. It's just that it very quickly is just 1 pixel. And you can't really do half a pixel. I guess you could make it less opaque. You could make it partly transparent to kind of imply the idea. But the fact that this is so heavily outlined now, that is specifically an issue with it being in the viewport. Because when we go into the game itself, you see it looks significantly different. But yeah, it does use the Z buffer to change the thickness of all the stuff. The outlines, having them hidden until the enemy's hidden, well, technically maybe. But not really, because it's a post-processing effect, so I would need to stencil them out. But because by their very nature they're outlines, so they exist outside of the object, even doing a stencil probably wouldn't work that well. If you wanted to do that, you'd probably just have to use a inverse hull overlay material instead, because that way you can easily enable and disable. Kind of like I uploaded a preview for a friend of mine about the turn-based RPG system, but we can watch that together here. Kind of like what we have here. These outlines are ugly because they're way too thick and whatever, but these outlines are done with a overlay material instead, so they can be easily turned on and off. Can you add me as an Easter egg, my icon? I mean, maybe. That's actually probably not a bad idea. At some point, maybe for patrons. Well, we'll see. But yeah, setting this up, that allows you to actually do this. The downside to this is that it is essentially rendering the same mesh twice. So you're adding a fuck ton of draw calls if you do this with every mesh in your game. Whereas this is just a post-processing effect, which is a little bit lighter on your game if you want to do it on everything in the game. Because again, otherwise you're going to be rendering your entire scene twice. The second time is going to be with a very simple material, obviously, because it's going to be just a couple of instructions, that being offset, vertex, normal space, no lighting, just color, and and invert the faces, but it will also be a double-sided material, so it's not ideal. This is just easier to slap onto the entire thing. It's a good thing for channel members. Yeah, that might be a fun thing to do for supporters. Once we get a little closer to the game being finished, I know on Patreon you can send out mass messages to everybody, so I can just do that on Patreon at least. I think I also have email addresses for my members, so I can just send out like a email list to anybody interested in that. And I might be able to like, maybe what we'll do is in the go fuck yourself room, where everybody gets sent when we use that one ability. Maybe we'll decorate that with like images of like the game supporters or something like that. That might be fun. Anyway, yeah, I think we're gonna kind of keep it at that for today because I don't have any other like ideas that we can super quickly do. Well, the defense one, I guess we can do the defense one super quick. Because that once again is just a gameplay effect that we can just like increase defense. We just apply a gameplay effect that increases the defense. We delay for like 60 seconds and then we take it off. And that's kind of everything there is to it. So some of these are very easy to make, and I like things that are easy to make because it means that I can make like 5 of them in 2 hours instead of, well, it's also, I'm very distractible. It feels like I'm making progress, even though everything I've done in the past like 2.5 hours was probably like 30 minutes worth of work. But hey, again, if I want to do work, be productive, I don't stream. I stream to like just have a little bit of progress, show guys what's up with the game, and have a bit of a dialogue. So the defense for the player, we're going to be adding to that with a infinite effects. Doesn't have a period, so it's a male. 0 for non-periodic effects. Okay, I just needed to make sure of that. And I guess we just given the level here as well. Yeah, that's pretty easy. Increase defense will then be that. Let's set that defense to like 10. I don't know. I think defense for me is linear and not multiplicative. If it's multiplicative, I effectively just made myself invincible here. We don't need to check any of this for this one, so that's nice. Committability, we are going to take off some mana for this one though. Maybe 50 is a bit much. Let's go for like 30. We do want to still have this for ending the ability if we like do all that stuff. And then I guess this should also be a gameplay queue maybe, but the idea would be that we delay and then remove active gameplay effects. From that, and then end the ability. And we'll stick this around for like 60 seconds. I think I'm going to rewatch your videos on gas so I can pick whatever method I want to use. I want to use set by color, but I don't think I understand it. Yeah, I've also like learned quite a lot of how to work with gas in the like year since I've made that. I think set by color is a little weird. You can do it. I do it in places. I think that the method I've come up with myself here is a lot more intuitive. So what I do here is in the modifiers, I just modify some attribute, add to it, blah blah blah. I have my like scale modifier here, so that's just 1 because I just want it to be 1. And then we take from what I have called generic curve table, and that's just a curve table that has, in my case, just one curve in it, which is just linear. Between 1 and 1,000, if we display this as a curve, it's just a line. You can, of course, set this up to like 1 to 1 million instead. And then the level that we give in while applying the effect will be effectively just the number of how, like, the magnitude of the effect. And we can then multiply that with this number over here if we wanted to. So as you saw in the gameplay effect health to mana, I just multiply it by -1 and suddenly we're subtracting. But if I wanted to like do -2 and do this like +2, suddenly whatever level we're given into here, it even gives you a preview. Add 1, that would be a value of 2. Add 312, it will be 624. This is essentially the same flexibility as what set by color could do for you, but it is just a bit more straightforward because you can just give in the level of your effect here. It's one thing that you need to do, and then it just like uses the proper values immediately with that. The same way that I also like the execution calculation class that at some point I highlighted. It's still good to know that it exists, but I honestly found that for the example that I use it in, where it is like taking a certain amount of like defense and HP based on like what the current defense and HP, that's exactly what that type of stuff is like meant for. But I also found that actually just splitting it up into a couple of different gameplay effects and having a function to just decide, hey, this gameplay effect for the defense damage that we're doing, we're calculating that separately, and then we're also calculating how much HP damage we'll do, and we'll do that in a separate gameplay effect. Just ends up making more sense for me. So I'm not saying that that playlist is bad. I'm just saying that that is made by me, who's been playing around with gameplay ability for like 2 months, and has a good enough grasp on everything to explain it, hopefully. Now that we're like a year in from that, I do think that some of the things that I show there are things that I, not ways that I would personally like do them necessarily. Also, I can't seem to get my second player to be able to activate gas abilities. Yeah, that I don't know. But yeah, I think that this is a pretty good substitute for set by call, because it's a lot more straightforward in the end. Okay, what I'm going to do, just to test this, I want to just go into my third-person character and just print out its defense stat every tick, just to like feel something. Ability system, get attribute value, defense, print the value for delta time. Let's see. Replication is a problem for future me. That's the kind of like nice thing about gameplay ability, though, is that while it doesn't like obviously do everything 1,000% for you, I didn't make an item for this yet, did I? It does handle like most of the replication stuff as far as I'm aware. I am not very aware, I should point out, because I actively avoid doing much in terms of like multiplayer stuff because I hate it. And I also don't like playing multiplayer stuff, and it's like more difficult to make, it's more difficult to test, it's more difficult to, and I don't enjoy it. I like games as like single player experiences, so that's what I want to make.
At some point, I've gone through and learned the basics of replication within Unreal, of course. At some point, I'm gonna make like a small little like test project again to like brush up on it and make a series on it, just because like at some point I'm gonna like 10 years down the road, like my channel should be a documentation source for the entire engine, more or less, right? Slightly hyperbole, but there's gonna be a time where I want to touch up on it and like make content on it. So at that point, I need to like be familiar enough with it, more than I am right now, anyway. So yeah, increase defense. That has an up arrow. We'll do that. I really am happy with the way that I decided to make my abilities into items. It's a little weird, maybe, but it's also kind of cool. You see? Okay, so now we have 11 defense, and then if we just wait for 60 seconds, it should go back down to being 1. 60 seconds might have been quite a long time to test this out with, admittedly. Probably could have done it with a slightly shorter time on that. We'll get there. Did we already go past 60? I should have looked at the stream time, because infinite durability do go back down when you remove the effect, right? Okay, I'm starting to be a little suspicious of the fact that it's still at 11. I'm trying to set up replication to the best of my ability, but my original scope set is for single player at launch, if I ever get to launch. So the thing is, if you suspect that you're gonna include multiplayer at any point, you really want to be... Oh, we're back at 1. Great. You really want to be like coding everything with that in mind, because if you if like the spec for your game is single player, you're going to be coding with everything for single player, and retroactively adding in networking, even in a like networking friendly engine like Unreal, which again is primarily built to effectively already run on a like server client architecture almost in single player games. Not quite, but almost. It's just like both on the same machine. Even within that, it's going to be a nightmare to like actually change up your code to suddenly like run on server and like replicate to all the clients and all that kind of stuff. So if you can at all like help it to not like procrastinate with that, if you imagine that the game is eventually going to be multiplayer, don't first make it multiplayer and then add in the, or single player and then add in the multiplayer bits, because adding in the multiplayer bits is essentially recoding the majority of your game. Which is a pain in the ass. Not entirely, because a lot of the code can just be like moved into like server events, and then you should be good. But it's a lot of work, and some stuff might not work fairly well because you have the issue where like the server can only execute events and not functions. So you like things that run on the server can't have return types, meaning that you... This was a thing that really like got me stuck for like a hot minute, and I still think that I probably would prefer it to be different, but I don't know enough about everything there to like actually have a valuable opinion. But you would think that you can like make a function that a client can run to request information from the server, right? That would run on the client and have a return value that it gets from the server. That's what I would assume would be a reasonable thing to want to make. Doesn't really work that way because Unreal is so like made with a like specific structure in mind for like server client stuff. What it wants you to do, if you want to do that, is just to replicate that variable. But if you want to like just provide in or well get back from the server a value that's not a variable, you're gonna be in a bunch of trouble because it just wants you to make a replicated variable for that, which makes sense. But that like got me stuck for a while. 90% of the replication is working. Okay, so no, that's fine then. You have a game design document created for this game. I mean, I have a bunch of loose lists of things that I want to do and like the direction that I want to take, but I don't have a well set up game design document. I should, but I don't. Anyway, so yeah, that defense spell works. We need to add some kind of like particles around the player for as long as it's active, so that it's visually clear that it's happening. So it's probably going to be like a couple of shields that just orbit around or something like that. We'll see. I don't really know how I'm going to do that. I'm not much of like an effects and visuals kind of guy, if you couldn't tell yet. But for now, it's been a good one, and I will be back on Thursday doing maybe some more of this. Maybe we'll be doing some level design rework. Maybe we'll be doing some AI coding. I don't know. If I feel particularly up to anything that day, we'll be doing that. And otherwise, I'll do another poll in the Discord. But I do need to... I have been... I know you should focus on the game design document. This is one of those things where it's like definitely do as I say and not as I do, because the way that I do things is stupid sometimes. But yeah, so I've been replacing a lot of the like blockout meshes for the first dungeon with, albeit temporary, art assets. So things are starting to look like a little bit more. They're still very blocky and square. They're gonna probably maintain the kind of blocky and square look to a certain extent, but sure. This one doesn't have a ceiling anymore because I'm in the middle of reworking this part. But this is now like actually just like meshes instead of the blockout tool things. So that's actually like, hey, the fuck are you still doing here? Thanks. So that's actually like kind of cool, right? There's now actually like static meshes that have like UV maps and lighting issues and whatever, and they all have like a little bit more shape to them, and it's starting to get somewhere, which is kind of nice. But as I was doing that, I came to like this level, and I'm like, I don't even know how I'm going to like contextualize half of what's going on here. Like none of this is good. So like most of this level, I'm probably gonna want to redesign stuff in. Specifically the first part. This latter part is probably fine, but like these pushers that I have, I'm not feeling it. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really feel it with those. Everything else is kind of fine. Like this can just be like a hallway, and stuff. But like this first part, I need to rework. It's just like not that good. It's actually like kind of bad. This as well. Like this room, it's just shit. It's just really bad. So I want to rework this from like a design perspective before I start like doing art assets for them. And then we have like a bunch of this, and this doesn't really need much going for it. But yeah, I've been slowly replacing this first dungeon with temporary art assets. The wonderful thing is, at this point, If I decide, hey, the walls just need a little bit more definition, I can just replace the static mesh as long as I keep it within the 1000 by 1000 by 1000 by 300 dimensions. Like everything within that, I'm good to go. Same with like these pieces over here. As long as I stay within just having everything line up to the same borders, I can then just swap out for an updated mesh and we should be good to go. The only thing is, once everything is in place, I do need to then go in back again and combine all of these modular pieces that I've made to be one giant mesh, at which point I'll probably go through and also like eliminate any inside faces because those are probably what's messing with me. That's actually a really good point. I'm going to try to see what happens when I remove the backsides of all of these. Because there is an issue where if I bake this light, due to how light baking works, you can definitely start like seeing the seams between all these modular pieces. And now that I think about it, I do think that the inside faces are maybe part of the problem, but I've also just seen a lot of other people online with this issue, and it's just because they're all getting lit individually and baked to individually, there's gonna be seams between these modular pieces. So what I'll eventually need to do is for like all of the wall pieces, I do need to combine them into like one giant mesh that has one high resolution light map. And when I do that, all the possibilities of like changing stuff are going to be gone. So that's going to be we do that the week before I release kind of deal. That's not anytime soon. Which also means that all of the test runs for the entire game are going to either be unbaked lighting or just ugly lighting. It's probably going to be ugly lighting. I'm probably going to bake it just to get like a better performance indication for everything. So yeah, I don't know why I'm talking about that. My mouth is just kind of going on autopilot, so I'm gonna just get out of here, and I'll see you back on Thursday. Thanks everybody for hanging out and having a nice chat.